Parliamentary elections have ended in Ethiopia. We'll have a live update from Addis Ababa. It's Memorial Day in the United States. How the Rolling Thunder motorcycle run reveals changed attitudes towards the Vietnam War. And Ireland becomes the first nation to approve same-sex marriage by a popular vote. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Parliamentary elections are over in Ethiopia with a victory expected for the ruling Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front Party. There have been no reports of election-related violence, and African Union observers say the voting was orderly. But opposition parties say the elections were not free and fair because Ethiopian officials routinely shut down dissent through harassment and arrests. And nearly 37 million people were registered to vote. Initial results are expected within 2 to 5 days, with official results coming by June the 22nd. And now these are the first elections since the death of longtime Prime Minister Meles Zenawi in 2012. For more election news, we are now going to go to the southern part of Ethiopia, a region called Shone, where Henok Fento, Voice of America, is standing by. Henok, hi.
Vincent.
Yeah, now, the elections, of course, look like they took place everywhere in the country very peacefully. But give us a sense of how things were in the south of Ethiopia, where actually the Prime Minister voted.
Yes, Vincent, over the past 2 days, I have been traveling to numerous polling stations in southern Ethiopia, especially yesterday as voting was underway. When the polls opened, I was in Bolu Sosore district, where, as you indicated earlier, the Prime Minister, Hailemariam Desalegn, as well as the National Bank Governor, Tekle Adnafu, ran for Parliament. Now, the Prime Minister flew in a helicopter to cast his ballot in his home village of Gumeno. I spoke to voters in his hometown who told me that they're very proud of Mr. Hailemariam for making it to the country's top political job, coming from such a rural village. He's expected to carry the votes in a landslide. That is what unofficial provisional results indicate today, Vincent.
Yes.
And
you know, Henok, people say the opposition claims it has been intimidated and harassed and therefore does not expect to win. But is it all 100% true that that is the only reason why the ruling party has this kind of a given victory ahead of it?
Well, the playing field is not level to start with, Vincent. This is a very well-rehearsed election on the part of the ruling party. I have seen in my reporting that they have used government facilities such as schools and clinics, as well as some public resources to mobilize people, including microfinance institutions and the like, to mobilize especially the youth. And there's also the question of finance. That is the question that I put forth to the Prime Minister right after he cast his vote. I asked him that the opposition parties say that the government uses state funds to finance election campaigns and that the political space is not level. Let's hear what he had to say.
Now, Henok, you know, there is also the question of the extent to which the opposition managed to kind of participate. You said that there are places where the opposition just boycotted. Did they undermine themselves by just pulling back?
Well, Vincent, the one thing that I will say is in my reporting, especially when I went to the town of Shone on Sunday afternoon, I'm still there. In this election district, the leader of the main opposition coalition, Madrak, Bayene Petros, well, he's now losing. It seems like he's losing his claim to reclaim his seat for a ruling party candidate called Yosef Daimo. Now, He's defending his seat in Parliament, and the provisional results are being announced right now. And it seems that the polls, at least the exit polls and some of the results indicate that the results usually favor the ruling party. And there's reasons for that. Yeah. The ruling party has campaigned furiously in rural areas, especially they have an organization that they use. It's a sort of a communist type of organizing people. Every one person in every 5 person is a ruling party member, and that's how they organized. They did not have huge election rallies or public meetings. The strategy seems to be making sure that the people in rural areas, organized in families, in groups of 5, are voting in favor of the ruling party, and that's how they got their message out to rural voters, Vincent.
Very, very interesting. Kind of block voting by family names. Thank you very much, Henok. That is VOA reporter Henok Fento reporting from the town of Shone in southern Ethiopia. Now to Burundi. Thank you. Now to Burundi, where protesters clashed with police on Monday in the capital Bujumbura following the killing of opposition leader Zedi Feruzi, was shot dead on Saturday by an unidentified gunman. Supporters of the Burundian opposition leader Zedi Feruzi hoisted his coffin and carried it through Bujumbura on Sunday, a day after he and his bodyguards were shot dead near his home. Those mourning his death carried signs condemning his killing. After Feruzi's death, opposition leader Frederiki Bamvugi Nyumvira said they could not continue with a United Nations-sponsored dialogue aimed at ending the country's unrest.
Nous avons décidé de laisser tomber ces négociations parce que
We have decided to leave the negotiations because they are of no use. Today, the most urgent thing is to cease the killings we are seeing and the organized assassination of opposition leaders.
Feruzi was opposed to President Pierre Nkurunziza's bid for a 3rd term. Nkurunziza's decision to run again in presidential elections has sparked the worst crisis since an ethnically charged civil war ended in 2005. With Feruzi's death, many fear the conflict is likely to get worse. The United Nations, the European Union, and African nations urged Burundi's government and the opposition on Sunday not to let the violence derail the dialogue. Now, for more on the ongoing political unrest in Burundi, Karenga Ramadan, a member of parliament of the ruling CNDD-FDD, joins us via Skype, via phone from Rumonge in Burundi. Mr. Ramadan, welcome to Africa 54. And
Thank you very much.
Yes, first, let's talk about this killing over the weekend. Really, you're a member of the ruling party. How does this play out for you guys? What do you make of it?
In fact, people are trying to find an outcome of this problem. And first of all, as you have heard, there is an initiative which was launched last week so that there can be a dialogue between all political parties involved in the process. And unfortunately, because of this killing, and some of the parties have withdrawn from that process.
Now you know that many are suspecting that perhaps the ruling party has a hand in this killing.
This is what you say, because the reality in Burundi, we are used to what people talk, they say that and that. You can ask why the government or the ruling party could be behind that, what was or what would be the advantage, what would be the gains in being involved in that assassination. What I know is that Zedi was a friend of mine, and I know him very well than ever. And he was not really a threat at all to the government of Burundi, so that he can be involved in that.
Now, Karenga, just in as few words as you can you explain to us why we have this crisis where hundreds of thousands have left, or rather at least over 100,000 people have left the country, and we have all these sustained demonstrations on the streets of Bujumbura?
My friend, when we are talking about hundreds and hundreds, myself, I'm a product of the refugee of Burundi. I've been really being a refugee for many years, and I've been outside for many years, for more than 25 years. When we are talking about hundreds, I remember in 1972, in 1999, there were more than 1 million who brought across the border of Congo, Tanzania, and Rwanda, feeling the atrocities. But what is behind this problem, my friend, is that there is a political dispute on the interpretation of the Constitution. This is the problem here in Burundi, because the Constitution has got some loopholes which are making now difficult for those who are supporting the so-called demonstration against the third mandate, and others who are saying the current president, the incumbent president, has got the right to continue. This is really the problem. It's much more political than ethnicity or whatsoever. It's really the interpretation of the Constitution.
Okay, and we'll follow up with you in the coming days to see how best the different parties are going to resolve this issue. Mr. Ramadan, thank you very much for joining us today.
You are most welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. Karenga Ramadan is a member of parliament of the ruling CNDD-FDD party. Now, the United Nations says cholera has killed dozens and infected some 3,000 Burundi refugees in Tanzania in a worsening epidemic. VOA's Esther Gitu-Ewart has more.
Burundi refugees who fled to Tanzania after fleeing political turmoil at home now face an outbreak of cholera. In a stadium near Lake Tanganyika, the deadly disease is spreading fast. In the past few weeks, it has killed at least 33 people in the area. The United Nations reports that over 3,000 more have been infected with cholera in the country, and there is fear of a growing humanitarian crisis.
The epidemic is still worsening. To date, some 3,000 cases have been reported. Numbers are increasing at a rate of 300 to 400 people per day, new cases, particularly in Kagunga and nearby areas.
Burundi President Pierre Nkurunziza's decision to run for a third term last month has sparked protests and a failed coup. As a result, refugees, many from the Tutsi minority, have fled to neighboring countries. The United Nations estimates that 100,000 Burundians have already fled the country, and the exodus could double in the coming months. Esther Gitu-Ewart, VOA News, Washington.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, on the 50th year anniversary of the Vietnam War, veterans speak out on how attitudes towards the conflict have changed. Stay with us.
This is Greenbeat.
This is a plastic bag, and this is a plastic bag. The latter is the reason more and more local governments are adding laws against plastic bags on the books, including China's Jilin province.
I totally agree with the ban order. I'm willing to pay 1 or 2 won for each biodegradable plastic bag.
Here in the United States, one of the latest legislative moves is California's ban on plastic bags at retail outlets. The United States' first state law banning most plastic bags may be sidelined, however, if a petition against it is successful. That should make some dog owners happy. They often use the bags to heed Mother Nature's call. And with about 83 million owned dogs in the United States, that's a lot of bags. Fortunately, some enterprising entrepreneurs have stepped in to fill the void. Companies like Chicago-based PoopBags.com make biodegradable bags for dog owners. The baggy bans are but a boon to their business. For VOA's Greenbeat, I'm Rebecca Ward.
Welcome back. Now, for many U.S. war veterans, Monday's Memorial Day holiday is an opportunity to look back at a divisive conflict in the nation's history and to remember those who did not make it home. VOA's Catherine Gibson reports.
Every year on Memorial Day weekend, the sound of the Vietnam War comes to Washington, D.C. Since 1987, hundreds of thousands of motorcycle riders across the U.S. have made the pilgrimage called Rolling Thunder to the Vietnam Memorial in the nation's capital. It's a place that U.S. military veteran Sharon Rinke says captures the intense emotions that surround that conflict.
Some of the people coming will be going to the Vietnam Wall for the first time, people who have friends whose names are written on that wall. those who have served with these people whose names are on the wall.
In the 50 years since the U.S. began combat operations in Vietnam, the veterans of that war have watched public attitudes change dramatically. More than 58,000 Americans died in the war. Those who came home faced resentment and even hostility. Clay Scott, who wrote in this year's Rolling Thunder, remembers those days.
People were cussing at me, yelling at me, you Vietnam person, you baby killer, and the whole 9 yards. So
yeah, and how'd you feel
I
about
immediately
that?
took off the uniform, hit it as fast as I could, and then got on my motorcycle and rode on home.
It was a cold reception that Jerry Martin still thinks about.
I could tell that there was a very large segment of our population who had felt that what we had done was wrong.
Martin received a Silver Star and a Purple Heart for heroism for his actions during an ambush.
We literally were pinned down. We couldn't move. And I saw 3 soldiers coming down, obviously looking for us. And I was able to make sure those 3 soldiers didn't make it down.
But that didn't change the anger he faced when he returned home.
Watching a car literally drive over 3 lanes to come towards me to splash water on me.
He says the attitudes towards Vietnam veterans have changed since then.
In some ways, these cult heroes that we weren't before.
The passage of time and a new generation of veterans have helped along that change.
We've been through a couple other wars that it seems that the soldiers are more accepted and are supported much more than they were in the Vietnam War.
Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
Well, the violence and unrest across the U.S. in response to the death of several individuals while in police custody, as well as police-involved shooting deaths, is more than just a trending news item for students at Ladue Middle School near St. Louis, Missouri. It is the central focus of one class. VOA's Ken Farabaugh tells us more.
In his second-floor classroom at Ladue Middle School in the St. Louis suburbs.
Throughout St. Louis, we then had this whole movement, right?
Vincent Fluellen is teaching a lesson more immediate than algebra and grammar.
People, for black folks, this has been happening for some time.
It is a lesson in life through the eyes of his students.
The events of Ferguson and Mike Brown's death, just in our backyard, they are our neighbors. There was no way that I could just kind of go with the course as previously had done.
If someone is running away from you and they're not dangerous, but you need to catch them, shoot them in the foot or something, not kill them.
Fluellen says his multicultural studies course can no longer just cover topics like foreign foods and immigration. It's the latest and recurring headlines that drive more of the curriculum and conversation with his students.
It has been mind-blowing, the number of reports in which it seems to be yet another, Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, just numbers, countless numbers.
Fluellen believes his classroom is in many ways the only place where these students of different races and backgrounds can openly share their feelings, concerns, and questions about the events happening in the world around them.
Kids have questions. Kids look to us to help shape their understanding of the world in which they live. I get to do that without interjecting my own personal thoughts, but I can help facilitate a conversation.
It is the kind of conversation University of Missouri St. Louis professor Brian Hutchison says many have shied away from because of its sensitive nature.
Over generations, it's become a taboo subject where we don't feel like we have the facility as individuals to talk about it in a way that is not harmful or that is constructive or that might not make us feel like that we are in peril.
What percent of all Americans think that race relations are worsening?
Fluellen says his class at the moment is not an elective. He says while some parents have voiced concerns about his teaching and the way in which he portrays some of the recent high-profile police incidents, the class is growing in popularity among his students.
Those who are not in this class certainly wish that they were in the class.
Fluellen says his wish is for this kind of class to appear in more schools throughout the country. in the hopes it could lead to less turmoil and unrest and greater understanding between police officers and the communities they serve and protect. Kane Fairbaugh, VOA News, St. Louis, Missouri.
Well, now to a disturbing trend. The recent marriage of a 17-year-old Chechen girl to a local police chief who was 30 years older and already had a wife caused an outcry in Russia and beyond. The bride was reportedly forced to marry and her parents were intimidated into giving their consent. Now, the union again spotlighted the plight of many underage girls in developing countries. VOS's Latisa Hoke has our report.
Russian law bans forced, underage and polygamous marriages, but in Russia's remote Caucasus region, tribal laws and traditions carry more weight than state law. And so on Saturday, 47-year-old Najud Guchigov married a 17-year-old bride.
Dear fiancé, dear bride, today is the most beautiful and unforgettable event in your life. Creation of a family is the beginning of a new union of two loving hearts.
Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov attended the wedding, and one of his aides was at the bride's side for most of the ceremony. Police warned the Russian journalist who investigated the controversial wedding to stay away. Despite laws against child marriage, in developing countries 1 in every 3 girls is married before reaching age 18. 1 in 9 is married under age 15. The problem was discussed at a symposium in Morocco this week.
We realize now that if we do not accelerate the pace and if we do not respond more or put more programs in place, there will be 1.2 billion girls who will be married before the year 2050.
Bangladesh, India and Niger are the most affected countries, with 3 in every 4 girls getting married before age 18. The practice continues mostly due to persistent poverty and gender inequality and is often arranged by a girl's parents.
So it is at this level that we must first intervene. And the second level is at the community level, for the community to start perceiving these dangers.
This 14-year-old girl in India was able to avoid the marriage her parents arranged by appealing to her school principal.
Today was to be my wedding day. I'm not getting married. I want to study.
Experts say governments in the affected countries need to do more to keep girls in the educational system and protect them from abuse and violence. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, a historic vote for equality in Ireland. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Africa 54, and here is what is trending. A historic referendum in Ireland is the talk of social media. Now, Ireland's citizens have voted in a landslide to legalize gay marriage. Stunningly lopsided results that illustrate what Catholic leaders and rights activists alike called a social revolution. Friday's referendum saw 62.1% of Irish voters say yes to changing the nation's constitution. to define marriage as a union between two people, regardless of their sex. Now, outside Dublin Castle, thousands of gay rights activists cheered, hugged and cried at the news. Ireland is the first country to approve gay marriage in a popular national vote. 19 other countries, including most of U.S. states, have legalized the practice through their legislatures and courts. Now, next up, the long-awaited trailer for the new Steve Jobs movie is finally here. The movie trailer has been a long time coming. Now, the film, written by Academy Award winner Aaron Sorkin, has been troubled from the start. It changed studios, directors, and even actors playing Jobs. The trailer shows actor Michael Fassbender, who plays Jobs, looking at an empty theater, presumably the Flint Center in Cupertino, California. In 1984, that is where Jobs introduced the Macintosh to the world for the first time at Apple's annual shareholders meeting. The film is directed by Danny Boyle, who won the Oscar for Slumdog Millionaire. Steve Jobs opens in October. Well, and finally, fans of Hello Kitty lined up in Hong Kong to eat in a Chinese-style restaurant dedicated to the Japanese cartoon. Through a Hello Kitty-themed restaurant and cafes already exists around the world. And in Hong Kong, none are known to serve traditional Chinese cuisine. Now, the menu features 37 dishes such as dim sum and fried rice, often in the shape of a girl cat. The eatery has been racked daily despite its official opening not scheduled until June the 1st. Hello Kitty, which celebrated its 40th anniversary in 2014, is one of Japan's most famous and cutest exports, and that is what is trending today. Well, it's time now for Sunny Yang for the most exciting weekend in sports, looking at auto racing. Sunny.
Hello, Vincent, and sporty greetings once again to our Africa 54 viewers. Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway was packed with hundreds of thousands of fans for the 99th Indianapolis 500, one of the world's greatest auto races. 39-year-old Colombian driver Juan Pablo Montoya won his second Indy 500 title. Montoya, driving for Team Penske and powered by a Chevrolet engine, fought from the back of the field before holding off teammate Will Power. The Colombian also won the race in 2000. The 15 years between Indy 500 victories are a record for a driver. I'm VOA Sunny Young, and that's the sunny side of sports. Vincent?
Well, thanks a lot, Sunny, and that's our show for today. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Unless you know American English, you might have trouble understanding what this means.
Back to square one.
Where and what is square one? And why would you go there? Let's listen.
I'm not having a good day.
I'm sorry to hear that. What happened?
My boss did not like my video project. She told me to redo it. So now I have to go back to square one.
If you go back to square one, it means you have to start over on something. This comes from a game board and the idea that the game begins on the first square. So if you go back to square one, you are going back to the beginning of something. And that's English in a Minute.